So this is a speaker meeting. Our speaker will share his experience, strength, and hope for approximately 45 minutes. And three words come to mind when I think about him when I saw him come in was Devon's Doorless Dodge. You have to be there to really fully appreciate it. All the Humboldt guys know. So we asked out of respect for our speaker to remain seated until he is finished. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Devon.
Hi there, everybody. My name is Devon. I'm alcoholic. Is there anyone who would oppose to me taking off my mask while I speak? No. Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. I know that it is suggested, so I just wanted to make sure that there was no opposition. So, first off, I'm incredibly grateful to be back here at this meeting. I started coming here when it was down at the Light and Life Church, and that was a real long bike ride to get from the square down there, and I upgraded from the bike eventually. But Marcus, I really appreciate you reaching out to me and asking if I would come up here and speak. Shortly after you decided to run away, I thought, that I'm never going to see you again, but I'm really glad that you made it back. I love you, brother. I don't know if I said it, my name's Devon. I'm alcoholic. My sobriety date is March 19th of 2016, and that is the most important date to me, and I hope that it forever remains that. Is this better? Okay. So anyways, March 19th, 16th, it's my most important date. I'm incredibly grateful that I get the opportunity to participate in my recovery, to participate in a meeting that I got sober in, to be able to be surrounded by men and women who have made such an impact in my sobriety over the number of years. It's just amazing to see all these old faces, new faces. You got John smiling out there, and it's classified under the old category, but it's really good to be able to be in AA and to be a part of it. When I first got here, and when I first came to AA, it wasn't here in Prescott. It was in a small little town of Thief River Falls, Minnesota. I had just been involved in an accident. I was waiting to stand trial for criminal vehicular homicide. I was not thinking I had a problem, and the last thing I wanted to be was an alcoholic, and the last place I wanted to be was an Alcoholics Anonymous. I would have much preferred Narcotics Anonymous because I thought that had a little bit of pizzazz, and I thought that if I identified as an alcoholic that I'd somehow be like my father. Father's side of the family is Irish Catholic, not practicing, and my mom's side of the family is conveniently Norwegian Lutheran. And I say conveniently because it was only ever on Christmas that we would go to attend any sort of service, and not practicing on my dad's side of the family because the only time you heard Jesus Christ mentioned was in some sort of derogatory sense, and usually it was followed by swears and hitting and things like that. And you know what? I thought that was pretty normal, and I don't see necessarily any other family, friends, or anything like that had any sort of different upbringing. And I say that because some people come from really fantastic homes, and some people come from homes that are in turmoil, and some people come from just regular old run-of-the-mill middle-class families, and that's kind of where I came from. And my family had absolutely nothing to do with me becoming an alcoholic. When I came in, I was coming to try and escape from the courts. I was trying to, get back things that I had lost. I was signing those court cards. It's kind of funny because I wasn't even sober. I was coming in saying I was sober, collecting chips, but meanwhile I was doing this thing called the marijuana maintenance program, and I thought that I was really smart by doing that. Turns out it doesn't work. But I was about 90 days sober, and that was the requirement to speak at this meeting. And so I was like, okay, I've never spoken at a meeting before. What do I do? He goes, well, just speak from the heart. It's like, I don't have one of those. That doesn't make any sense. And so I went home and I fired up a little inspiration and I sat down and I wrote for about an hour, because that's how long they said that I was supposed to be speaking. It was going to be a 45-minute pitch. So I'm like, okay, all right. So I go and I start jotting it down, and it took me about an hour to write, so I figured that it was going to take me about an hour to speak. And that was not the case, and I was standing up here just spitting lies out of my face for like a good 35 minutes. And so I'm happy to say that I've evolved a little bit from that point. I'm going to be sticking to a timeline of truth. I'm going to be sticking to the information that I know and the information that's come out of this book. If you hear anything that I say that starts with I think or it could be or anything like that, just know that that's an opinion, and those are very dangerous. If it's not in this book, it's not something that you can really take home to the bank. It's just my opinion, and I am by no means an authority on Alcoholics Anonymous. I do not know everything there is at all. I do know what works for me, and it's come out of this book. So I was celebrating my 5 years at a barbecue this afternoon, and I was surrounded by men and women who I just treasure. I was read aloud a bunch of birthday cards from my sponsor, shared some tears, and I was absolutely embarrassed. But I was overwhelmed with gratitude and joy. So kind of going back in when I started drinking, I was a young kid. It was at my grandparents' house, the family function, and there was always rum that was sitting around, and then there was always near beer, which is like a non-alcoholic beer, and that was for my dad, who was alcoholic. And I say that because he says that he's alcoholic, but I don't think that he has the same thing I do, because there's something that sets me apart as a distinct entity from normal drinkers. And that is when I take in alcohol of any kind, whether it's the 0.03% in a near beer or mouthwash, and I ingest that, I have an allergic reaction which is not the same to an average temperate drinker. And that sets me apart from people who are non-alcoholic. And so I saw, my daddy's drinking this near beer, and, my uncle's over here nursing his Budweiser, and then my other uncles are over here, and they all have their little cocktails mixed with Captain Morgan. And yeah, I noticed who was having the most fun. My uncle's just sitting in his armchair, and he's sitting back and enjoying the Budweiser, and my uncles over here, though, they're just getting wild and toasty and everything like that. And I see what they're putting in there, and I'm like, okay. I don't know, at this time it was probably about 7, 8, 9, somewhere in that area. I was a young kid, and so I take a cup down, I put it on the floor, and I snuck the thing off of the shelf, and I poured a little drink, and I mixed it up with some Coke, and I was like, okay, I saw that's what they do, I'm going to do this, it's going to be okay, right? And just follow the leader, which is actually, strangely enough, contributed to me being sober. So I just play follow the leader, and I see what they're doing, and I drink this drink down, and it was almost instant. It was like when I was at that family gathering, I've always felt like a black sheep in the family. Always felt like a black sheep of the family. And I had this relief, and I didn't necessarily correspond the two together. I didn't take the drink, and I didn't realize necessarily, but I knew that it felt good. And I knew that there was something, and I didn't quite realize at that point I had found the answer, but I knew I found something really good. And as a 9, 10, 8-year-old, it's kind of hard to drink every single day, and so I didn't. But whenever I could, I did. And I would, my neighbor across the street, he lived with his grandmother, and his grandmother would smoke Benson Hedges and, drink out, I think it was like Chardonnay or, I don't know, some wine or something. And she'd, have it on the back porch, and she'd be smoking her cigarette and drinking her drink. And, when she'd go to bed at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we'd go and we'd sneak over there, and we'd steal her cigarettes and steal her wine, and we'd go and sneak back and go to the local park, and we'd fire them up, and we'd drink it down, And it was amazing. It was absolutely wonderful until she caught on and realized that something was happening. So as the years went on, I went through junior high, and went into high school, and I'm realizing that there are other things that if I mix them together, then I can get another sort of effect, which is really why I do anything at all. I do it because I like the effect that it produces, and so I'm going to do whatever I can to get that effect. And in junior high, I was talking to a friend of mine who just celebrated, I think it was a year or 18 months. He was telling me, he goes, "Do you remember back in guitar class, we'd go and we'd hold each other up by the neck up against the wall until we'd pass out and we'd let go and fall down?" He goes, "I thought I killed you. You go and you hit your head on the whiteboard and start seizing out, and the next thing you do is you get back up and you're like, whoa, that was cool." You know? And that's what I was going for my whole life. I wanted that, you know, I just wanted to go boom, go out. You know, and that was my solution to life. I was incredibly uncomfortable at an early age, and so I'd start doing everything I could that would take me out of right here, right now, and see if I could get transported over here a little while later, because I was just too uncomfortable living where I was living. Going through again in high school, I started doing everything and anything that I could to take my mind off of my problems that I had. And I used to say that very loosely because as you know, you get older, you realize that any problems that you might have are just compounded, you know, with interest over the years. And once I finally got sober, I realized that all those things that I was dealing with when I was a kid, they weren't even really problems. You know, they were just excuses that I used, and I was the king of excuses. You know, if you had the family I had, you do what I did. If you had the life that I lived, you do what I did. And I was just constantly trying to make excuses and reasons as to why my behavior was okay. I was lucky enough to go to Italy when I was in some area of my life. I'm very hazy when it comes to numbers because I was intoxicated the majority of that time. And that's just the case. That's what I was doing. And so at some point I was able to go to Italy with my mother and my sister. And it was wonderful, and you know we didn't have Dad there, you know, who was the sole problem of everything, or so my beautiful Al-Anon mom put it. So we were there, and we're on a train, and I haven't had a drink in I'd say at least a day, maybe two, and I'm just starting to feel it, right? And you know, I get into a fight with my sister, and I recapped this with my mom not long ago, asking her, you know, kind of figuring out things about my childhood, and she goes, "Yeah, you know, that fight was because you wanted to sit." It was either in the aisle or the window. She was sitting in the seat that you wanted, and I was super self-entitled, and I was like, "That's my seat. I want this seat." You know, it was just I'll pick anything to fight over, so that I can I can have an excuse to remove myself from that situation. And so as soon as the train stopped, I got off the train and I was gone. And I was just a kid running around in this train station, and I think it was in Venice or something. And so we're floating around on canals, and I just took off, right? And so in Venice, you can't really get far. It's, you know, different Venice, Oscar. It's the one in Italy, not California. Anyways, yeah, so the canals there are clean, and you can actually float around in them and stuff, not have to worry about stepping on glass or needles or anything. It's beautiful. I was over there, and I was jumping on these little floatable taxis, and I found myself it was a restaurant in Italy. They didn't card me, and so I found out that because I just walked up and I said, "Okay, that's beer. I know that I like that. Okay, that's cigarettes. I know that I like that." And I go up and I say, "Here, I want some of those." And I was just like, you know, I'm going to shoot my shot because I wasn't able to get anything at all, so I know that I'm going to go to something that is reliable, and that's alcohol. On the label, it tells you right here, it is 7% alcohol by volume. It says right here, it is 15% alcohol by volume, so I know that it is going to be, it's scientifically proven. It's backed by the FDA or whatever, and I know what's in there. Don't always know with other things that I put into my body, but I also didn't really care. But I go around and I grab some beer and I grab some cigarettes, and I'm going, they let me buy it. I'm like, "Okay, I'll be right back. Hold on, stay right there." And I go and I grab a few more, I put them up there, and they'll go, "Okay, yeah, cool, we'll sell it to you." So they sold me alcohol, no idea why, and I remember I just got wasted, and that's what I did, man. I started a fight. I made these people not want me. I made it so that I didn't want to be there, and I went out, and it was a perfect excuse to go and get just tanked. So that's what I did, and then wandering back around, I had my drinks, and I was smoking my cigarettes, and I was like, walked past a little, side of the road pizza place, and my mom and sister are right there having some dinner. And I'm like, well, do you mind if I join you? Not even thinking that I had just called my sister incredibly mean and tragic names, and I just took off and left my mom in a state of panic. We're in a foreign country, and this little 13-year-old boy is running off getting tanked. I didn't care about any of that. I didn't stop to think about how that would be affecting my mother, how that affected my sister. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our trouble, a problem, something along those lines. It's in the book. You can find it yourself. So, anyways, going down the road, I got mixed up with people, places, and things that I definitely shouldn't have. I had this notion that I wasn't going to live to see 18, and so I kind of lived that way, trying hopefully to bring that in, to try, because, it's like when I was a kid, I didn't want to be alive. I didn't think, I just felt so bad. And, I tried to remove myself from this existence any way that I could, and I genuinely believe that if I didn't come across alcohol, if I didn't come across other substances, I would have taken my own life. I would have actually been successful at taking my own life before I was 15 years old. My first attempt, I was 10, So, when I got older, I'm mixing up with people that I shouldn't be. I'm doing things that I shouldn't. I'm going places that I have absolutely no business being, And I think that that's okay. And make it to 18, and I'm like, ooh, what do I do now? And I decided that it would be a good idea to move north to Thief River Falls, Minnesota. There's a whole story behind that, and we don't need to get into that now, but I thought that it was a good idea, and believe me, it was exactly the idea that I needed. I can't say whether it was a good idea or a bad idea, but it's what happened. And I made it to Thief River Falls, Minnesota, and in Minnesota, I did what they do. I just followed suit. And I'm 18 years old, and I'm working with pipeliners, and I'm working with septic drivers, and I'm working with carpenters and house builders and roofers like Marcus over here. And, these rough, ugly mugs. And they're drinking in a certain way, and I'm following suit. And I'm 18, 19 years old, and I got guys who are telling me, hey, just settle down, man. If you just drink alcohol, if you're going to be drinking alcohol, drink water in between. Every beer that you have a glass of water. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. I started pissing myself all the time, It was just, it just wasn't effective, And then I found out that if I ingest some powderized substances, that I can drink more. And that I can go longer without having to black out. And I'm walking around and I'm swaying, I'm slurring, and I'm speaking, and I'm hip and slick and cool, and I'm okay. And I'm just going da 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 da. And I can actually drink and be social. And just 1 second, I'll be right back and go do what I do. And then I come back and do what everybody else is doing and try to fit in and try to be, what I thought was okay. And I'm incredibly grateful for that. And the reason why I say that is because that helped me hit my bottom so much faster. One night I was in a bar, and I was drinking I think I was drinking to celebrate that night. I don't know. It was Tuesday. And I was talking to a buddy of mine and back home, and I heard some information that I wasn't happy with. And so instead of drinking to celebrate, I'm now drinking to mourn. And, I was drinking. And I decided that, I was hungry, so I went to go and try and get some food. And I'd walked to the bar previously that night because I know when I drink, I like to go places, and if I can go places with a motor, it's much more convenient. And so I was definitely a drinker and a driver, and I would, and so I'd just say, okay, this is how I'm going to control and enjoy my drinking for tonight. I am going to leave my keys here, and I am going to walk to the bar. I am going to have some drinks, and then I am going to go home. That was my plan. But alcoholism had other plans for me. I got hungry, and so I went and got my car from my house, and I drove to the place to go through the drive-thru, and then I came back to the bar. I didn't even think of dropping my car off because that's just out of the way. It's too inconvenient. And by now I've had, multiple MICs, not multiple DWIs at that time. I think I had one DWI, drunk in public, disorderly conduct. I've had these litany of charges that have all been brought to my attention, and it's all been due to alcohol. I had never gotten in trouble sober. I have never been in an accident sober. I am a perfect driver when I am sober, just so you know. And I say that with complete sarcasm. I'm sorry, what was that, Greg? Okay. I love you. But no, so I got the car and I parked it at the bar. And I continued drinking because that's what I do. And now I went from the celebratory drinking, which I don't know. I was just, I pick a reason and I'll drink for it. You know what I mean? And so I was closing out the bar. I was like, let me get 2 for the road. And I go and I hang outside and I'm smoking my cigarettes. And I'm sipping on these little plastic Nursey cups of whatever it was, probably Windsor. It was cheap and Canadian, so I was up drinking that. And I decided that I'd get into my car. And a friend of mine was with me, and I went for a drive. And there was a really bad accident that night. That was on October 21st of 2011. And I woke up in a hospital, handcuffed to the bed, and that's where alcoholism took me. And then it kept going, because that isn't a big deal for me. I wake up in the hospital bed and I think, I need another drink. That's what's going on in my head. And I thought that maybe the drugs were the problem, so I'm gonna quit doing the drugs. And then somebody pointed out to me, hey, all of these charges happen when you're drunk, so why don't you quit drinking? And I'm like, you know what? I'll try that. Meanwhile, I'm continuing this marijuana maintenance. It's silly. I tried to quit drinking, and I would stop drinking momentarily. Say a couple weeks. I think the most I ever got was maybe 16 days if I was lucky. And I'd be losing my mind. I would be so incredibly uncomfortable with the people, places, and things that were around me that I just had to take a drink. And, I didn't understand that. People were like, my dad would say, just don't drink. Just drink near beer, or just don't drink at all. Don't drink at all for a little bit and then try some near beer. It doesn't work for an alcoholic like me. It doesn't work for somebody who has that peculiar mental twist that knows that when I do this, this happens, that isn't good. And so to avoid that, all I should probably have to do is take out the alcohol, right? And so for any normal person, that solution works. But the problem for me is alcohol was my solution. Alcohol was my solution for life. It was my solution for relationships. It was my solution for insecurities. It was my solution for everything. And you're telling me just to give that up? You're literally taking away my best friend. And so I'm sitting there and biting my lips, and I'm just, just furious that I have to be sober. See all these other people getting sober and, their lives get better. Oh, I feel so much better. I look so much better. Man, I stopped drinking, and it's like, I don't know if you guys know Futurama, but Bender the Robot, where he starts getting this rust beard when he doesn't drink, that's like, man, I can identify with that, I just start feeling bad, I just start feeling real bad, and eventually I get to that point where I need a drink, not because I'm physically, addicted to it, not because I'm shaking, but it's because I am obsessing over that drink to the point where I'm thinking of nothing else. And so when I come to, and I finally fall victim to that obsession, I take a drink, and I pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful, with a firm resolution to never do it again. And that's how I lived probably it was 2011, so at least the next 5 years, And I didn't know why when I got sober things got worse. And I saw these people in the meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they're like, "Oh, hey, my life is fantastic." And I didn't realize that they were like reading out of this book here. This is the pocket-sized book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and there's the solution. It's a whole chapter. It's in here. If you guys are confused about what needs to be done, if you read this book, it'll kind of clear things up for you. But that was the difference. There were people who were doing the deal in Alcoholics Anonymous. There are people who are taking the steps that were outlined in this book. They were read tonight, man. Something about how, what did it say where you were just like, "Oh, we asked his protection and care with complete abandon." He gives a big old sigh. Like, man, I get that. I couldn't do that. I was reading these steps and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, man. Like, how am I supposed to give my will and my life over the care of a God that I can prove to you doesn't exist? Because that's what I was taught growing up. God doesn't exist, and I say the word God a couple of times. Anyone who's out there who's like, "Ooh, I don't like that word," okay, that's cool. That's cool. I say God. I mean your own personal thing of God. I don't care what it is, who it is, where it is. Just pick something and run with it, man. And I was doing that for a long time. I was trying to figure out something that worked. So I slowly realized that alcohol wasn't my problem. Because, as I said, I take away that alcohol, and I still have the court problems, and I still have the relationship problems, and I still have the social problems, and I still have the interpersonal problems, and I still have all of these problems that are just there, And alcohol, I guess, isn't my problem. Alcohol is my solution. And that solution was getting me into a lot of trouble. And so when you take away my solution and you don't give me something back to replace it, I'm screwed. And the next best thing that comes to mind is suicide. Because I can't live with you. I don't know how to live with you. I don't know how to live with me in the same room, breathing the same air, looking at the same people. And the next best thing to do is I'm just out. Let's go. I'm done. So somebody finally got through to me. He's my sponsor. He's sitting in the back there. And he cared more about my life than he cared about my feelings. And he told me some things that I wasn't too keen on hearing. And he had me do some things that I wasn't too keen on doing. And he took me through the steps. And each step we read out of the 12 and 12. I put the pen to paper, and I started doing the things. I was introduced as Devon's Doorless Dodge. I sold a doorless truck to get into rehab up here, and it had more dents than miles and more rust than dents. And it was a beater, to say the least. It had no doors because I decided to sell them. And it was a really, really great idea. I sold that truck eventually to come up here and try to get sober. And I did it on a loan. Some guy never paid me back, so I got to go ahead and repo that when I was about 9 months sober. And drove down to the Valley of the Spun and repoed the truck and came back up here. And it was kind of funny because I was like, this is awesome. I got my keys, I got my truck, everything's good. And he goes, yeah, but do you have a license? I'm like, no, I don't. I haven't had a license for 3 years. It's never been a problem before this. And he goes, all right, well, give me the keys. And I'm like, what? So the truck was parked out in front of the sober living for a while, and I wasn't able to drive it, and he was dangling the keys in front of me like, a little carrot and a horse, and, I'm just trotting along doing the deal, and I needed to jump through all these hoops to get my license back, and I did. I eventually did. I started doing everything that was required to me, and it's required of me. And I went from riding this bicycle to, it was like 6-7 meetings a week, except for the one on Thursday night where I jump in a car with a friend of mine, Michael, who, he's not here tonight. He might be on Zoom. Hi. He'd give me a ride to this meeting, and then, I got this truck, and I got my license back, and we'd just pile guys into this truck and go rolling down to Dewey Humboldt and jump out and be like, hey, the newcomers are here. You could hear the trucks falling apart. We're like thinking it's the coolest thing in the world. And, it's like, I just got plugged in, man. Started doing the steps, started going to the meetings. And, one thing that really confused me when I was new was I thought that meetings were the program. And if anyone here is new and struggling with this idea that I'm going to meetings every day, why am I not able to stay sober? It might be because this is what I found out, is that the meetings are a place that we go to carry the message. And that's where newcomers can go to find the fellowship they crave or the fellowship they seek. It's in the doctor's opinion, if I'm not mistaken, or it's one of here. I'll tell you what, if you guys can find it, gotta read it though. So I did that, and I went to meetings, and I just wasn't staying sober. And finally, I was like, okay. So the main difference was I took the steps. I took the steps as outlined in this book, and it's absolutely amazing. I am sober today. I didn't think that I was going to be living to see my 18th birthday. I was living that way. And then I turned 18. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll move it to 20. I'm never going to be able to have a legal drink, that's for sure. And then I turned 24, and I'm like, dude, something's got to change. And I finally, his voice was louder than my head, got through, and I started taking direction, and I started working the steps. And because of that, I am able to live comfortably with unresolved issues today. Life is not perfect. Life is life, man. And it's something that's just it's something that we get, and it's really a gift. And it could be, I could consider it good, I could consider it bad, but when it's all said and done, it just is. And I have a life today that I do not deserve. So thank God, whatever God that is, thank God life isn't fair. I don't deserve the life that I have today. I have the ability to go home. I started a meeting called Under the Bridge, and it started underneath Tempe Town Lake Mill Avenue Bridge. I know you're familiar with that. It's called Under the Bridge Meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it started underneath that bridge. And it has a special place in my heart because there are many, many nights where I was either kicked out of the house or I was out of the house on extended leave, or that was my safe place. I'd go down there, I'd sit by the river, and I'd be spending the night there multiple nights in a row, And now I live right across that lake. I have a condo out there, and it overlooks the lake, and I can almost see where I was staying from my balcony, man, And, material stuff is all well and fine, but that's not what signifies progress, What signifies progress for me is the fact that I'm able to live comfortably with those unresolved issues, and when I get a little squirrely and I start going off the deep end, I got people who I can call. And, I'll call my sponsor, and he might not answer because he's busy helping another pukey newcomer, and so I call somebody else, like my brother down in the valley. Nick Lodato over here who's, I'll give you some juice. You saved my life. You know what I mean? You got people out here who really genuinely care because their life is on the line just as much as mine. So I'm kind of running out of time, but I really want to talk about how absolutely amazing this program is. If you're sitting here in a meeting and you're not doing the work and you're thinking maybe to yourself, oh, I'm not sick, I'm different, like I did, dude. I did that all the time. I was sitting up there and I'm like, I'm not an alcoholic. I'll say I'm a drug addict, but I'm not an alcoholic. And I did that, I did that. And I hope you just catch alcoholism, man. I say that with absolute love because that was once I finally found out that I realized that there was something that separated me from the average normal drinker. And that was when I take a drink, the drink takes me. That obsession turns into a craving. Once I take a drink, that craving comes in and I am now powerless over alcohol. And it's absolutely beautiful because I was unable to go 14 days without a drink. And here I am 5 years consecutively. 5 years without a drink or any mood or mind-altering substance, and that is, that's congratulations to God. I didn't do that. If I had the opportunity, I would run my life into the ground and I'd be sitting underneath the bridge doing some sort of something with people who I probably shouldn't be with, doing funny things in funny places with funny people. It's just what I end up doing when I'm in charge of my life. And that happens in sobriety too. The people closest to me can attest to that. It's like I get a little squirrely and then all of a sudden I take the reins back. Just the other night we're driving, and something comes up and, and she's like, no. Kat says, God is either everything or else he's nothing, right? God's got this. And I'm like, no, he doesn't. No, he does not. He might got you, but he don't got me in this one. Give me the reins back. And I can tell you that conversation did not go the way that I wanted to. I ended up making amends. Amends in relationships or people who are very close. Those are the most humbling. I tell you what. But that is those are the most beneficial, the ones that really, really put me right size, because I like to think that I'm running the show. I like to think that I'm Mr. Big Shot, and I'm not. I'm just one among many. I'm just another garden variety drunk, I'm an alcoholic. I'm no longer an alcoholic because when I'm an alcoholic I'm looking for a way out for me. That's just how it is for me, and I was doing that for years. I'm incredibly, incredibly grateful that I am a member of Alcoholics Anonymous in good standing. I'm grateful that I have found a solution to my problems. And I'm grateful that all of you are here tonight. And I tell you what, if you didn't hear something that you liked tonight, which I don't doubt it, if that's the case, come back again next week. There's going to be somebody different. There's going to be another story. There's going to be another alcoholic standing right where I'm standing, telling you their success story, telling you exactly how and why and what led them to find a power that's greater than themselves. Thank you all for being a part of my sobriety. Love is the answer.
Let's thank Devon one more time.